let's talk about how we can evolve the current relationship with your dog and reinforcement and evolve it into a strategic use of that reinforcement. So the first step is the dog loving food. Some of you don't have a dog that loves food. You need to create that love. But when you find one food the dog loves, then you're going to use a second food, maybe give it to them first and give them the higher value food second. So we start with step number 1 as we evolve your reinforcement strategy. That is, the dog's got to love food. Because if they don't love food, you can't grow brilliant behaviors. Brilliant behaviors are grown from brilliant reinforcement. So number 1, dog loves food. That's where a lot of you are, that the dog won't do anything unless they see the food. And so we've got to go from step 1 all the way down to step 5. So step 2 is we've got to add some contingencies to them getting their food. And that's where, for me, one of the first games I play with my dogs is the It's Your Choice game. I've talked about it a lot on the podcast. I'm going to leave a link in the show notes. Contingencies on that reinforcement means you might have some cookies in your pocket. Now, if you play It's Your Choice, your dog will eventually ignore those cookies in the pocket because they know coming up and bopping you in the hip is not going to get cookies. Or you might be like me. I have like food bowls around the house on counters, and they're there. If I see something amazing happening, then I will mark it. I might say, good dog. I might give what we call a spotlight, a location-specific reinforcement marker, cook, and I'll walk over and I'll give the dog a cookie. So what would that look like? Let's say I don't like my dogs in the kitchen when I'm eating, or I don't like my dogs in the kitchen when I'm cooking. If I see a dog in a dog bed on the peripheral of the kitchen, I'll give them a cookie, especially when they're puppies. I will intentionally make them want to be in those beds. So that could be a contingency. The dog gets the surprise deposit into the relationship bank. I love when you're in that bed. I love when you aren't barking when someone comes through the door. Whatever you love, you're going to reinforce. So they don't see the food coming. They are in the midst of something, and then you go, that's mighty good, and you reinforce them. There's a contingency on that. It could be you're training the dog with a training game, with a series of training games, with a training plan, like our Recallers program, where we give you strategically layered games that help you evolve the reinforcement strategies with your dog. And the other thing that you need to do while you're growing contingencies on your reinforcement is ignore the demandica dog. The dog that comes up and flips your hand and says, I think you need to feed me. I think there's cookies back here. The dog that sits and barks at the cookie jar. The dog that whines when it's near dinner o'clock. You need to ignore the demandica dog, and you need to help grow their understanding that food, toys, activities are all reinforcement that are delivered, not demanded. Okay, so we've got to love food, got to have some contingencies on that food. Now we've got to transfer the value of that food. Playing games where the dog does something and then they're reinforced, that's a way to transfer value. So the value goes from the food into a game, like crate games. The transfer of value happens. So any of you who've ever played crate games, I know that your dogs will love to fly into the crate because they've got such a history of reinforcement there. The value has been transferred. It could be transferred into a game of tug. Now you've got another valuable reinforcer. You're not always using food. You're sometimes using tug. It will be transferred into acts with you, like the hand target or other games that now you can use. If I'm out on a walk and I ask my dog to come near me, maybe I'm passing somebody, I will ask them to come into reinforcement zone, another reinforced behavior at my side. While they're there, if I don't have any cookies, I'll just ask them for a hand touch. It's highly unlikely I'm out for a walk without cookies, but it does happen. It does happen. So we've gone from the I love food stage to contingencies on that food to now we're transferring the value of the food to food, toys, games, activities. Now we're going to grow the duration of the behavior. So they're not going to get a reinforcement the moment they get in the bed. They might get in the bed around the kitchen, and you might walk around the kitchen a few times, and then you're going to reinforce them. We're stretching out the duration between reinforcements so that eventually, let's say you wanted your dog in the bed while you're eating. Well, first, you're going to have an amazing understanding of what being in that bed means. You're going to grow that duration without you being at the dinner table. So once you have this amazing behavior of your dog hanging out on a bed, now you're going to do it while you're at the dinner table. It might start with you having a couple of cookies that you throw back into the bed from time to time, but eventually you might get up, clear the table, give the dog a cookie, and go and do the dishes. And eventually it'll go to, I'm not even feeding the dog for being in the bed, but they're being in their bed because it's a highly reinforced position that will still randomly get reinforced, like when I'm walking into the kitchen, when I have a new puppy. If I reinforce a puppy that's in a dog bed and I see another dog in the dog bed, they're getting reinforced as well. So we're growing duration of a specific behavior. We're also growing behaviors into other behaviors, a behavior chain. So you already have a behavior chain, I'm sure of it. You may not realize it, but you have one. When you first got your puppy, I'd be willing to bet the first thing you did when you got up in the morning, if your puppy was in a crate, was to get them up and run outside with them so that they can eliminate outside. Now, eventually you got to the point where you would get up and you would go to the bathroom yourself, and then you would come and get your dog and get them outside. So the reinforcement of relieving themselves outside now has been built into a chain. It doesn't go from, I'm out of bed, we're going outside. It's, I'm out of bed, I'll go to the bathroom, then we'll go outside. And it can grow even more when I'm in a hotel and I might be on the trillionth floor. I get up, I will go to the bathroom, I'll shower. It might be 30 minutes before I go outside with my adult dogs. I wouldn't do this with a puppy, of course. So we're growing a behavior chain. For example, I mentioned reinforcement zone, a place on my side where my dogs find value because we've grown it from recaller games. Now, I might start stationary. The dog finds reinforcement zone on their own. They get a cookie for being there. Eventually, I'm going to say, you are so good at that. We find reinforcement zone. I'm going to take a step and I'm going to feed you. So now you can find reinforcement zone. I can take 1-2 steps before I feed you. I might ping pong that. You find reinforcement zone. I give you a cookie. We take 3 steps before you get your next cookie. That is growing a behavior chain. And that is how the use of reinforcement is evolved in dog training.